Welcome to the Bi-Geekly Report, your bi-weekly take on queer representation in geek pop culture. I'm your host, Elle Sanchez. This episode, we're going to be talking about Erasure in superhero-specific films that have been coming out between Marvel and DC lately. Specifically, I want to start by talking about, if you read the articles related to the latest Thor film, Thor Ragnarok, that has the Valkyrie character in it. And Valkyrie, if you may or may not know, is bisexual in the comic books. In the film, it's implied she's bisexual, but there have been articles out about how they filmed a scene in which she's talking to one of the other characters, probably Thor, and one of her lovers, it's always the term they use for, like, because anything, if you're queer at all, you only have lovers instead of like fuck buddies or whatever for some reason. But anyway, so one of her lovers comes out of her bedroom or the room she's sleeping in, so it's kind of implied so you could see that, like, oh, she's bisexual. But they cut that scene from the film, and the actress that plays Valkyrie mentions that because they cut that scene from the film, there is a later scene, which is in the film, in which they show the Valkyries attacking Hela. And in that scene, one of the Valkyries falls, and like to protect Valkyrie. They're Valkyries and her name is Valkyrie. But one of them falls, and the way she reacts to it as she's shot with arrows, I believe, the way she reacts to it is beyond like, oh no, my friend. There's a very obvious kind of feeling in that scene when you're watching it. Spoiler, I guess, if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok yet, go see it. It's so good. Anyway, it's very much implied that, like, they're more than friends. Like, you can sense a loss, like a romantic or some kind of connection beyond friendship between those two characters. And the actress herself said that she did that on purpose because she did want to portray this character. She considered that character as her lover in the scene when they were filming it. So it is still implied in the film, but they still erased a direct thing that makes it obvious that this character is bisexual. There's more so kind of flirtation between her and Thor later on when they stand too close to each other and it makes them uncomfortable on one of the sex spaceships that Jeff Goldblum owns. I don't want to ruin it if you haven't seen it. But Valkyrie it's kind of obvious that she is bisexual in the film, but not as direct as it should have been. And that's kind of that's the most we get these days with the superhero movies. Is in general, there's been a lot of bi-erasure in the past, and this character is the most visible bisexual cis woman we've seen in a superhero movie so far. So Marvel in general, with the superhero movies they've come out with, have been slightly better than DC when it comes to bi representation specifically. We talked a little bit about Valkyrie. Also, another character who is implied but not directly stated in a Marvel film is Deadpool. Deadpool is pansexual in the comic books. It's implied in the Deadpool film that he is not straight. I'll say that as much. Of course, I feel like the implication comes through just his enjoyment of, like, ass play and getting pegged, which straight people like that too. Unfortunately, they take everything from us. But it's true. So that doesn't really imply anything, but it's still kind of implied between conversations he has with his girlfriend that he isn't straight. So again, we're getting some sort of representation, but so Marvel is a little bit better. Although Colossus is in that film, and there are different versions of Colossus in X-Men comics and the Ultimates, I believe that he is gay, and there's other versions of the comic book in which he's bisexual. In the film, it's not stated at all. I mean, to be fair, he has very few scenes. I don't think his sexuality is really discussed in any way, but it's kind of unfortunate. We could have had two bi characters in the movie, although Negasonic Teenage Warhead gives off a very queer vibe. Also not discussed, but visibly there. Marvel hasn't been perfect when it comes to bisexuals in cinema, superhero cinema. we get a little bit from them, but it's still ways to go. But unfortunately, you know who's worse? Just in general, actually, not just in representation, but DC films have there's a lot more complete bi-erasure going on. Unless we talk about Wonder Woman, which is just the greatest superhero film that's come out in a really long time. Surprisingly a DC film because the DCEU is struggling. But in that film, it's also implied that Amazons on Themyscira have romantic and sexual relationships. Wonder Woman says at some point to Steve Trevor, Chris Pine's character, her love interest, she says to him at some point that they realize in Themyscira that they don't need a man for pleasure or any other reason. And so that's sort of implied that because she then obviously later on hooks up with Steve, so it's kind of implied that she's bisexual. But again, not direct in any way, but better than complete erasure. Because if you compare that to other DC superhero films in which the characters are bisexual in the comic books, there's complete, non-mention of those characters being bisexual whatsoever in the films. And we can talk about specifically the John Constantine character from the Hellraiser comic book. It's a Vertigo comic. His character in the film that came out, the Keanu Reeves movie Constantine, he's completely straight in that movie. Not implied, although he's one of very few important bisexual characters in the comics. So it's really unfortunate that in the film that came out, he is completely straight. Also, in the television series they had, which was, I've heard, better than the movie, but his sexuality isn't really discussed. He's definitely not spoken of as being bisexual. I don't think it's implied either. So, unfortunately, that character's bisexuality completely erased in any cinematic or television show that has come out. Another really sad DC bi-erasure situation we have is Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. In the comics, of course, it was somewhat recently that they came out as a couple, a romantic couple. It's been implied kind of forever since the animated series. But in the film versions of both Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, neither of them appear to be represented as bisexuals at all. Specifically, Harley Quinn is in the Suicide Squad film that is, I won't ruin it for you, it's pretty bad, but Harley Quinn is in it. And it's hard to say whether or not Harley Quinn is being represented as bisexual because her interactions with all people are pretty flirtatious, although in that film there's very few female characters, and of the few that there are, which are Katana and the Empress, or whatever her name is. Sorry, who cares? But Katana, she has kind of a flirty line with Katana, but she kind of flirts with all the guys too. So it's kind of, it's not really directly discussed. Most of that film is about her love affair with Jared Leto's unfortunate take on the Joker. So that's not really discussed. The cinematic version of Poison Ivy we've seen so far has only been in the Joel Schumacher Batman and Robin film, which is very fun if you liked the 1960s Batman TV series, because those Joel Schumacher films, the last two, the Batman and Robin and the Batman Forever, then Batman and Robin, are definitely more inspired by the goofy Batman TV series with Adam West. But that movie, although Poison Ivy is totally straight in it, at least that's what it seems to be, it is kind of still the gayest Batman movie we've ever seen. I mean, Joel Schumacher, everyone knows, if you see those Batman movies, they're just shots when they put on the suits, where they show their little rubber crotch pieces, and then they have nipples on the outside of the characters. But unfortunately, everything is gay about that film except for the characters themselves, which is unfortunate. Everything else, super gay. Batman and Robin, not. Poison Ivy, not. What a missed opportunity. Who knows about Bane? I don't remember too much of that version. But still, DC has much worse history of bi-erasure than Marvel, but both not doing so good so far. Let's hope with the slight bi-representation of the Valkyrie character in Thor, that we see more representation for bi folks in the future in superhero films. There are plenty of bi superhero characters, and if we keep having awesome actors like Tessa Thompson, who plays Valkyrie, who is queer in real life and was or is dating Janelle Monáe, singer and actress that's amazing, we can hope that maybe more queer actors can play queer characters, and we see more people fighting for this representation in films. So fingers crossed that we will see more bi superheroes in the future, because they're definitely in the comic books. So hopefully DC and Marvel and other independent branches out there get their shit together and actually have real bi representation in superhero films. Thank you for watching the Bi-Geekly report on Jet Space Magazine. I've been Elle Sanchez. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I say that word. Like, share, and subscribe. If you liked this video, you want to tell other people about it, and you want to see more. So please do so. Thanks for watching. Bye.